Hey everybody, it's Candy, aka Brown Eyed Girl 69. How y'all doing this evening? Well, today is December 3rd, 2024. This day's pretty significant for me in a lot of ways. Most of y'all know I've had, 3 long-term relationships in my life. All I ever wanted to do was, be with somebody for at least 20 years. 20 years or more. With the last one, I really thought I had it. I thought I had it in the bag for sure. But we celebrated 13 years together on December 3rd of 2017. And a little over a month later, he was no longer with me. Yes, December 3rd, 20 years ago was the day that Daryl and I got together and started our relationship. Would I have ever pictured myself 20 years ago, 20 years later, without Daryl by my side? No. I was convinced that Daryl and I was going to grow old together. I was definitely convinced that Daryl and I was going to grow into very elderly status together. Whereas he would have been like in his 80s and I'd have been in my 70s. But that didn't happen. That's not what took place. So 20 years ago. It's kind of funny too because, I think I told you on the last story that he basically just arrived at my house. My friend brought him and he never left. Well, the night of their arrival, which was technically it wasn't December 1st anymore. It was 2 hours into December 2nd when they arrived at my house. And we basically stayed up all night chit-chatting about what had taken place with Daryl and Joey and Mark. We sat up, smoked weed, drank some beers, and conversated all night long. The next morning, of course, I had to take Kelsey to school and then come home and get some rest because I had to work that night. But during some of that time, when Kelsey was in school and I was taking Daryl to the convenience store to get a pack of cigarettes or something, I basically let him know that I was interested in him. I'd touch his leg or look into his eyes, straight into his eyes when I was talking to him. So he definitely knew that I was interested. I let it be made known. Thursday night I went to work and left Daryl and Joey, my friend Joey, at my house. Even though she'd already told me that they were going to go back up to Oklahoma City to do a couple of things and then she would come back. Her and Daryl would come back. Well, I was at work, so I'm not exactly sure how it all took place. But the next morning, I got home that night off work. Kelsey was at my mother's. because I worked up until 11 o'clock. And my mom didn't know I had company. The next morning, she would take Kelsey to school for me. And I wouldn't pick Kelsey up until Friday afternoon, which was December 3rd. So basically from Thursday night until Friday afternoon, it was just me, Daryl, and Joey at the house. Partying and whatnot. Daryl was sleeping in Kelsey's bed, and Joey was sleeping on the couch, and I was sleeping in my bed. Kelsey had slept in my bed. I moved her to my bed, I think it was Wednesday night into Thursday. But this is Thursday night into Friday. I was pretty tired. I think we went to bed early because, we had stayed up the night before all night. So I think we all decided just to call it a night at about probably 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So Daryl went to Kelsey's room. Joey hung out on the couch, and I went to my room. Next morning, I think it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, had to go to the bathroom, and I could hear some stirring in the house. There was a little gap in my bedroom door that allowed me to kind of peek out into the living room. And so I heard something going on, so I peeked out in that gap, and I could see my friend Joey getting off the couch and going into my daughter's bedroom where Daryl was sleeping. At this point in time, Daryl and I hadn't really discussed us, okay? But it was pretty much known that we had feelings for each other. So I let her go into my daughter's room. But I was, I wanted to see what was going to happen. So I opened up my bedroom door, followed her in there. I tiptoed on my toes, waited till she was in the bedroom before I made my way across the house. And as I approached my daughter's bedroom, I could see Daryl looking out towards the hallway. And Joey had her back to me, but she was hugging Daryl. Daryl was just kind of giving me eye motions So I turned around and hurried up and went back to my room. And then Joey came out. And then the next thing you know, Daryl comes out and comes up to my door and knocks on my door. And he's like, "You awake?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, you want me to make some coffee?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." I was off work Friday and Saturday. It felt awkward the whole day because I wanted to talk to him, but I just couldn't get away, think of an excuse to get away so I could talk to him alone, And then I think it was that afternoon or something like that. We were talking in the kitchen and Joey was outside or in the bathroom or something. And I said to him, I was like, "Hey, if you don't want to have to deal with people interrupting you, you're more than welcome to sleep in my room." And that's when he looked at me and said, "Well, will you be sleeping in there too?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, it sounds like a plan. So I'll be sleeping in your room tonight?" I go, "Yeah, if you want. Do you want to?" He said, "Most definitely." So I consider Friday afternoon, December 3rd, technically when we agreed that we were going to get to know one another. and see where it went. Needless to say, Joey was hanging around all day. That evening, because I'd picked Kelsey up from my mom, or I'd picked Kelsey up from school that day. And she hung out with us and everything. Got to know Daryl, and he was getting to know her. And we watched movies. Daryl made us dinner, made all of us dinner. I think I helped him. Me and Daryl made dinner. Hung out, Kelsey finally passed out, and I took her to her room and put her in her bed. And when I came back out into the living room, Joey's like, "Where's Daryl sleeping?" And I was like, "Yeah, with me." Oh, she did not like that one bit. And you could tell, sort of. But anyway, the night kind of progressed, and we just went ahead and called it an evening and proceeded to dismiss ourselves into my room. Me and Daryl was probably awake until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And the next morning, Joey came rapping on my door and said, "I'm leaving." "Okay, talk to you later. Bye." As soon as she got home, she immediately was calling me and telling me, "He's just using you. He doesn't have a place to go. He's just using you." And I'm told her, "Well, if he's just using me, then why were you trying to get with him?" You know what I mean? I witnessed it with my own eyes. I witnessed you approach him and make advances towards him when you already knew how I felt about him, and you knew that he kind of liked me too, so... Sorry. 20 years ago. Well, that was 20 years ago. Well, it'll be almost 7 years in January, a month from now, since Daryl left this realm. And, even though I'm alone physically here on my 20th anniversary, he's with me. He's in my heart, And that's where he's always going to be. He's always going to be in my heart. And it has gotten easier, I don't cry as often. Sometimes it does make me sad when I think about all the things that he and I experienced together and the life that we had, because I know I wouldn't have led that life if it hadn't have been for him, There's no way I would have ever been homeless by myself. There's just no way. My mother would have never allowed that to happen. I mean, she basically told me that I could come home, but Daryl wasn't allowed. Well, Daryl was my partner. He was my best friend. He was my lover. He was everything, There was no way I was going to leave him to go back and live home with her. I don't know what she was thinking, but she sure wasn't thinking right. And even though Daryl and I weren't, quote, legally married, he was my husband in my heart. And we exemplified in our relationship everything that a marriage should be, We were together through thick and thin, We were together through rich and poor, sickness, health, through the good, through the bad, or, through the good and bad, until death parted us. I'm grateful for that. I can't be any more thankful that I did get to experience that type of relationship with somebody. That I did get to experience what it was like to be truly loved and accepted by another human being. For me, just being me. And having that support, you know, that mental and emotional and spiritual support from him. Come what may, you know. There was something that, you know, there's so many things in my life that I've started that I never finished or completed. My first relationship, my first husband, well, I didn't complete it. I was only with him for 4.5 years. The only reason why we got legally married is because, well, we got tired of being preached at by my mom how much we were living in sin by not being married. So we got married just to basically shut her up, you know. But it really did change things. When I got that marriage certificate, something inside of him changed, and he felt like he owned me. And I wasn't going to be owned. I didn't mind being a partner, you know, but I wasn't going to be owned. So yeah, that relationship ended 4.5 years from start to finish. And then I was single for a while, you know. I always seem like I do good when I'm single. I come up, you know. I was single. I had a good job. I was going to school to try to better my education so I could get a better job and make better money. I was spontaneous, impulsive. Dated around, but didn't make no commitments, you know. Then I moved to Dallas. And a year after living in Dallas, I met Kelsey's dad. And basically, he and I was together from 95 until 2000. Kelsey was a year old. We'd been together about 5 years. Kelsey was a year old. And we went our separate ways. As a couple. But we maintained a decent friendship and co-parenting with our daughter. Even though we were separated, deep down inside, I still loved him and wanted to be with him. We had some turmoil for about 2.5 years between ourselves personally. A lot of that had to do with me and how I was. But we did get back together in August of 2002. And then 3 months later, he passes away. So, technically, I knew him for basically 7 years, 7 months, and 1 day, I think is what it came out to be. But we weren't together that whole entire time. But that's how long he was in my life, and that's how long in that time span that we were together, as well as had a child together, etc., etc. And then I was alone for 2 years, and then I met Daryl. There's so much I could say about it, but it's all within me. You know, it's all in my heart. It's all memories, basically, that I'll take with me until to the grave, you know. I have memories of my childhood. Probably my earliest memories are around the ages of 2 to 3. And all the way up to now, present moment. It's like I have a photographic memory. So I can experience being with Daryl at any point in time that I truly want. Because all I have to do is just go back in my mind and think about multiple experiences, multiple times that we were doing whatever, wherever we were. Daryl and I definitely created our life based off of what we truly wanted in our hearts. And even though a portion of that life was hard, especially when we weren't living indoors, it definitely gave me a different perspective and view on life, for sure. I think it made me more grateful for life in some instances, because you really don't truly know what you have until it's all gone. Like all my childhood memories that I had physical renditions of, it's all gone. Everything that I ever had in my childhood, gone. Kelsey's childhood, gone. I lost it all in storage. But those are just physical things, you can't take it with you. But I still have memory of those things, but I don't have those physical items. Anyways, 20 years. 20 years, and the last 7 have been alone. But it's me getting to know me better. Like I said a little bit ago, I do better alone, It seems like emotionally I do better. But after having all these relationships, I think I truly learned that, I was a codependent person. Each of these men did bring me something to my life, that I needed to learn. So I'm grateful for that. But losing Daryl really, really basically brought me to a screeching halt. To where, honestly, I don't know if I'll ever be with anybody ever again because of the way I am. And possibly because I don't want to lose anybody again to death. And so that's probably another reason why I'm so guarded, But we'll see. We'll see how life goes, But there's too many things in life that I want to do with my own self first before I even think about dragging anybody else along for the ride. Anyways, that's my 20 to 25 minute rambling on my 20-year anniversary. December 3rd, 2004 to December 3rd, 2024. Cheers. And as Dog would say,